I have never reacted to an Israel Adesanya win since I started making videos on my YouTube channel, guys. It's crazy, but that's some news though. It honestly feel like euphoria, so I hope you do so. It's not a secret like Victoria that this little do slow, but I honestly feel like Taporia, because honestly, who's Joe? Yeah, baby, yeah. Who's Joe? Who's Joe, brother? Who's Joe? Yeah. Listen, guys, I'll be real. I'm nervous, guys, for this week. I'm nervous. Whole day, all my life, the whole day, I watched footage today. Like, this is what I did my whole Sunday. Watching footage, man, it really just, it makes you aware of things. It opens up your eyes in a lot of ways now. In this video, I'm doing my stylistic breakdown. And you guys know every single time I make a video like this, I 99% of the time get the fights right. Because I think I do a lot more research than the average person. I am the best main event picker this year out of every single YouTuber. That is a fact. You can fact check that. So I have to, no matter what, continue getting my main events right. And I'm going to get this main event right, I feel like. All right, so let's get into the stylistic breakdown. You guys know how I go. Typically, I go from the striking pros and cons for both guys, comparison, same with grappling pros and cons, comparison. I talk about things to note, and I talk about how I think the fight's going to go and my predictions for the fight. So no more stalling with the bit, guys. Let's get into it, guys, because Israel Adesanya fight week, baby. We're here. We're finally here. We're starting off with the striking pros and cons, and we're going to start off with Israel Adesanya. Starting off with his pros, man. His feints and his distance management. That's what Izzy does, I would say, arguably the best. Might be the best attribute that he has. People talk about, oh, dude, Joe Rogan and John Anik only glazing his feints. Dude, they don't understand the importance of feints and distance management. I feel like people don't understand that. But I also said great body kick and low kick because it's a kind of a pair. You see Izzy a lot go to the body, though. I feel like that's his best weapon. If I had to pick Izzy's best weapon, I feel like most people would say low kicks. But as of lately, in general, I really like the way he slams into that body kick. Then I said the sticky jab setup in his solid offensive boxing. His sticky jab setup is his most used thing in the boxing realm. When I say sticky jab, you guys are going to know exactly what I mean. He either holds his jab out there and lands a huge over-the-top overhand, or what he's been doing lately from what I see on the DDP fight, even a bit in the Mava fight, he holds out his jab and he just fires to the body. He'll hold out his jab and fire to the body. It's all set through that sticky jab. So these are the three things he does the best, guys. I don't know what, like out of everything here, I feel like he does everything pretty well. But like I said, a big thing about what got Izzy good in the UFC, guys, was his kicks. Now, he kind of got away a little bit. There's some fights he doesn't really throw the low kicks. He kind of brought that back against Imavov, the low kicks, because he didn't really want to trade with Imavov because Imavov's a good boxer. Now, this is an important fight here because Pyfer is also a good boxer, in my opinion, from what I saw. A good boxer and also more dangerous than Izzy. So I do see Izzy, this great body kick and the great low kick that he has, he will bring it back. Same with the feints and distance management. You have to establish range with Pyfer. You can't sit in boxing range with Pyfer. Israel Adesanya got caught lacking switching stances out of boxing range. I mean, inside of boxing range against Imavov, it got him knocked out, guys. So his feints and his body kicks are going to be big here. That sticky jab setup, which is one of his best pros, it's a little bit more risky to use against Pyfer. It really is. So even though this is that's a good pro I want to talk about, it worked really well against DDP because DDP does something where he has kind of a high guard and he kind of just always kind of protects his face, so it'll open up the body easily against DDP. But I don't think this sticky jab setup works a lot or like will work too much against somebody like Pyfer, who's kind of open in his stance, a lot more open than a DDP who's kind of coiled. It worked against Pereira too, but that's because Pereira, most kickboxers, guys, one thing you're going to know about them, they lack defensive boxing, and that actually kind of brings me into my cons of Izzy, his defensive boxing. Guys, horrible boxing defense. Arms extended, lean back. This is something you see with a lot of kickboxers, guys. I also said he has a switch stance problem. We're going to get into that a little bit, but I really want to preface the horrible boxing defense of Izzy. Now, it says horrible. It sounds like I'm being like harsh, but guys, kickboxers in general, they're so used to like having bigger gloves, so they don't defend. They don't care too much about defending too intelligently. Like they're not going to defend like boxers. They're going to defend like kickboxers. That's kind of like framing off, creating space with their elongated hands and kind of turning away and leaning back. That's not good to do against people who are primary boxers. Now, fun fact, before Nasruddin Imavov, Izzy never really went against a solid boxer. Someone like Robert Whitaker, he's a good kickboxer. You know, he doesn't box like a traditional guy. Nasruddin Imavov was the first person who boxed Izzy, who's like a primary boxer. Like Imavov's boxing is a lot different than the typical person because he sits down on his 1-2s and he's very fast. That's a big similarity with him and Pyfer. I wouldn't say Pyfer's as fast as Imavov, but I will say Pyfer power hand and his rear hand might just be as fast as Imavov's rear hand. Matter of fact, Pyfer has a way better rear hand than Imavov, in my opinion. So this is his horrible boxing defense. I'm not just saying it's horrible just to say it, guys. Israel Adesanya never had great boxing defense. You're going to notice it. Look back at his Whitaker fights, guys, the first and second fight. The only time Whitaker will really land on him is he's throwing like straight jabs. He'll like bounce Izzy's head back a bit. You know, a lot of these people, even Marvin Vettori, like landed some jabs, like, because Izzy's so reactive. Now, when Izzy was a little bit more youthful and like younger, like the Whitaker one fight, still one of Izzy's best performances, because although he's not defending the boxing things traditionally, he's using a lot of head movement. But Izzy was more agile. Over time, his boxing defense is actually actively getting worse because he's becoming a little bit less agile. This leads to him in situations like DDP, where he's kind of just leaning back, but not from an angle. I remember like in the Whitaker fight, he would lean back and almost cut an angle in the middle of leaning back. He was trying to do that, and he was kind of doing it a bit early in the DDP fight, but most of the time, man, he was just kind of leaning back. And DDP is one of those people who like throws 1-2s and he's like, wait, he's just doing that same thing where he's leaning back. So DDP did make a read. I watched that fight so many times, dude. He made the read where it's like, okay, if I throw a 3-4-5 punch combo, Izzy's just leaning back. Vogue does it too. It's like maybe City Kickboxing just has a bad habit with that, but some people just lean back in a single line. So people, when they chain together combos, it could be problematic. Now, I will say Pyfer's not someone who chains together absurd combos, but even the whole like initial lean back, a rare hand could land on that lean back, which is what landed for Imavov. Imavov threw a 1-2. The 1 didn't land, but the 2, it landed, because that lean back, it's like you're too reliant. To rely on a lean back, you have to be very reactive and very quick. Izzy could do that a lot better in his youthful times in the UFC, you know, but I've noticed Izzy's reaction times getting a bit slower as I see his recent fights. Like, I watched him in Imavov and DDP. His head movement just wasn't the same as it was in Whitaker 1 and Brunson fight. It's just not the same, you know. And even back then, it was like a little bit of a defensive flaw, because he would get caught with people like Gastelum with straight punches down the middle, because he just relies too much on the head movement. But this horrible boxing defense is like one of the biggest things I've noted when taking notes of both Pyfer and Izzy's striking pros and cons, because it's the thing that could be exploited the most, and probably the most important piece of this puzzle that I'm talking about in this fight. That being said, like I said, he still has his good pros of like good distance management, but there's just some lows between Izzy, where after body kicks, he's typically really close to people in range, and that's when that leaning back can get you in trouble, you know. So that's Izzy's pros and cons, you know. And I also said switch stance problem. I'm going to touch on this a little bit. Most people think it was just a Nasruddin Imavov fight that Izzy got caught after a switch stance. I see it in a lot of his fights. Watching back footage, he did it against DDP. They're landing punches, but they weren't like crazy significant to hurt Izzy, but they would like wobble Izzy a bit. Like Izzy would throw a kick, he'll be in range, and you try to switch stance in front of people, and you'll get caught. This is not just a one-time thing. I remember thinking it was just a one-time thing, but the more I watch Izzy footage, I'm like, no, Izzy switch stance a lot. I also want to bring up this point. When Izzy switches in southpaw, and he does this a lot, it's good because he has a really good body kick from southpaw. However, his already problematic defensive boxing gets worse when he's in southpaw. Like, his hands are a lot lower. You know, he throws a really good kick from there, but he doesn't defend well. And even his lean back is so much slower from southpaw. So he has to be careful when like fighting in southpaw, period. Yes, it's going to be great for throwing that body kick, and it might like stifle Pyfer a bit when Izzy's like feinting and switching stances. But if Pyfer like says fuck all that stancing and that feinting, and I'm just going to go down to straight when you switch stances into southpaw, it's gonna land. Like, it's gonna be problematic for Izzy. Izzy's not the best defensive striker in his southpaw stance. So southpaw, like, I feel like for people like Pereira, he gained a lot of confidence in southpaw because Pereira is a traditional kickboxing style, and Pereira kind of like started to pause a little bit when Izzy was switched southpaw. So Izzy feels like that could be the case with other people. But primary boxers, if you switch stance in front of them, they don't really care to respect that, you know, because they're not trying to tit for tat kickbox with you. They're just trying to punch your head in. I think Pyfer is one of those people who are going to try to punch his head in. So the switch stance problem is actually problematic. It's helpful in a way because it almost stifles people. But I notice if someone's not going to get stifled by it, they won't. DDP kind of ignored his switch stance. Like, he would switch stance against DDP. DDP was like, screw that. I'm going to just throw this 7-punch combo, you know. So one thing I've noticed about Izzy, I'm going to also say this. I didn't write this down for his cons, but there's a thing when you're champion, man. It's like the realm of invincibility. You know, people almost like pause in front of Izzy. They'll say, oh, I'm going to do this when I see Izzy. They got in there with Izzy and they played into his game. The only people who beat Izzy, they didn't respect Izzy. if that makes sense. Now, some people are gonna have a hard time understanding this, but like if you really look at the Whitaker won. He didn't respect Izzy. He got knocked out, but that's also because I feel like, this is my opinion, Israel Adesanya does not counter strike as effectively as he used to. So yes, Robert Whitaker, he was able to counter strike beautifully. Like he'll lean back and throw in the midst of that. That doesn't happen with Izzy anymore. Look at the DDP fight. Every single time DDP came in like kind of goofy, Izzy didn't want to set himself because he didn't want to take some punches or potentially take a punch to land because he felt like DDP had crazy power, you know. Even against a Mav, well, Mav was a little bit too quick to kind of time him, but Prime Izzy would try to time a Mav or try to time DDP. You know, he didn't really do that against these guys because he doesn't want to get hit by them. Now, Pyfer hits even harder than DDP and Mav combined, so it's letting me believe that Izzy's counter striking, counter boxing that he used to have, he's definitely not going to bring it out against Pyfer. That's going to be more problematic. You know, against Whitaker, that's the only time I really seen him like trust his counter boxing. And he did take a couple licks, trust me. Like Whitaker was landing some things when he was leaning back, but Izzy was like, I'll take a little bit of a brush to land something. But he won't do that against Pyfer because he doesn't. I don't think he's gonna trust his chin, especially after coming off a knockout loss for the first time and then going against a power puncher. Matchmakers are kind of doing Izzy a bit dirty with that. But yeah, these are just things I want people to know, guys. Like Izzy's a very talented striker offensively, but his bad defensive habits are starting to come out more because now he's going against people who stylistically can almost exploit those habits. So, man, it's a tough one for me. Like, I know it's not that much cons for a striker, especially a world-class striker, but his cons do have major significance. Now we're going to go on to Joe Pyfer's striking pros and cons. For pros, great rear hand, real one-punch power, and imposing pressure. Pyfer is intimidating, bro. This is one of the most like nervous I've been for Izzy watching footage. Pyfer's always on the front foot and he's like very aggressive and he's very like it's like intimidating. It's almost like Pereira on the front foot, but like so like different styles. Like, dude, I think Pyfer would be a stylistic nightmare for Pereira. Like, if like I really do. Like Pereira, thank God Pereira never fought him. You know, I know that sounds crazy to say, doesn't it? But like, Pyfer's not bad, guys. Pyfer's good. Chat, Pyfer's good. Dude, I hated watching footage. And I know people say, can you watch the Jack Hermanson fight? I did. Trust me, I did. Like, Jack Hermanson beat him over the course of 5 rounds because he slowed a bit. But Pyfer took shots. Guys, there's never been a fight that Pyfer didn't land that rear hand on everybody. And every single time he landed on them, they went down. The first shot he landed on Gaslam, I don't know how Gaslam's refrigerator head ate that shit, but the thudding sound is just sickening. He's crazy. He's disgusting with that boxing. So he has a great rear hand and real one-punch power. This is actually the first person Izzy's ever fought with one-punch power. Nasruddin Imavov, guys, I wasn't like, people kept telling me, oh, what if he chins Izzy? In my head, I was like, chin Izzy? Like, who has he chinned? Oh, he's standing KO, TKO against Jared Cannonier. Ooh. You know, and Izzy's not like Izzy got one-punched, but Izzy got stifled by the power, and then the follow-up shot against the cage, great. That was crazy accuracy. I think Imavov's a lot quicker, you know, and like speed and timing can result into power. But this guy has speed and power. His timing's a bit off at times. You see him kind of wing punches, but his speed and power, he can one-punch Izzy. I'll tell you guys that much. He has real one-punch power. People said Pereira had one-punch power. I don't believe Pereira has one-punch power. You know, we saw it, Pereira's finish against Izzy, like, you know, TKO standing. That if Pyfer gets a finish, it wouldn't look like that. Like, it's not gonna be a left hook and early stoppage. It's not gonna be none of that. If Pyfer lands on Izzy, good night. You know, a little bit bedtime story. Like, I'm not trying to be jokes, but it's actually he to go out. You know, so this is very intimidating for me. You know, watching footage. You know, I had my thoughts beforehand, watching the footage, watching his style, watching how like he almost like backs people up. You know, I am interested in the seesaw game, you know, who's going to give up the front foot or not. I really believe that Pyfer is going to be the aggressor more so, you know, and Izzy's going to be aggressor when times present himself, but I do think Pyfer is going to be the more aggressive more so. And if I'm Pyfer, I saw Pyfer in the interview say something about he wants to respect Izzy. If Pyfer respects Izzy, he's going to lose 50-45. Pyfer shouldn't respect Izzy. Pyfer should go in there and fight like he believes he beat the shit out of Izzy. That's what I think Pyfer should do. I'm just from watching footage, that's what I believe he should do, you know. I remember Paulo Costa like was coming off like great win streaks and like he looked great. He was actually imposing a dominance, but he stood in front of Izzy and got flustered by the low kicks and was kind of a little bit hesitant to engage. And once he did engage, his front leg was trash, so he got countered. But these pros are very scary for him, especially considering Izzy's cons. I really feel like these pros are something you got to look out for. As for his striking cons, though, very one-dimensional, guys. He only throws that rear hand. He has like a little lead hook. It's not bad. It's not great. You know, he has a decent uppercut, not great though. He's kind of one dimensional in the sense that he's only gonna throw that one rare hand, and it's a kill shot every time. Like he wings it, you know. And I would say he has decent like power, like decent power, not decent power, like decent power over time. Like typically people's power kind of declines. From what I've seen, he actually throws pretty hard for like a good amount of time. First 3 rounds specifically, he can throw hard for those periods of time that have one punch power. Championship rounds, I feel like he loses the one punch power, but he still has stifling power. But I do think he's very one-dimensional in the way he throws that. Sometimes he doesn't even set it up with a straight. Like I swear, sometimes his jab beforehand is literally just like a buff. It's like a buffer, almost like he like pawed down, but he would throw it. But when he lets it go, it's heavy. But I said surprisingly tentative at times. I've noticed this, like the Kelvin Gastelum fight, his Abuz fight. Sometimes Pyfer's in front of you, and he is walking you down, but he's not letting his hands go. You know why? Because he's looking for that rear hand. He's loading up. That goes back to my one-dimensional point of view. He's so insistent on he wants to land that sometimes he's just walking you down and like trying to hand fight you, but not really letting his hands go. You can't really do that with Izzy because Izzy will be throwing low kicks and body kicks and circling. And by the time you're trying to find that one shot, Izzy's up on you in damage. Izzy's up on you and he's outpointing you. You know, Izzy could very much make this guy look like a fool. You know, one-dimensional strikers against a world-class kickboxer, you could look like an idiot. You know, especially when your cardio looked a little bit sus against the Joker, you know? So him being surprisingly tentative is not going to play into his benefit against Israel Adesanya. That's how I see it, at least. So I don't think it's a good thing that he sometimes is looking for that kill shot too much because he ends up not letting his hands go, which ends up putting him behind in points in important situations. Also said he's reacted towards feints. He's one of those, he moves well. For a big guy, guys, he's in and out pretty well. But every time you feint at him, he jumps back. It just sucks to do that considering Izzy's pros are like he's very heavy on those feints and he wants to draw those reactions out of you. That's why I said it's important for Pyfer not to overly respect Izzy in this situation, because if he does respect him, he's gonna be reacting like a motherfucker. Like he's gonna be jumping back, and that's gonna result to him being even more tentative than he usually is, which is not a good thing because now you're gonna get smothered on points. You're gonna get outpointed like into an oblivion. It'd be the worst case scenario if he does that. So his reactivity towards feints and how like jumpy he tends to be if someone was to like try to draw out reaction to you, being too reactive against Adesanya is literally a recipe for disaster, because Adesanya is naturally more feint heavy than 99% of the people in the UFC, and like, you know, he's gonna be controlling the whole range, which takes away a lot of his best weapons, which one is his killer shot, his big rear hand, and two is his ability to pressure people, because you're not going to be able to pressure someone if you're just jumping back from feints. You're not going to be able to get your rear hand off, your most powerful shot off, if you're just getting flustered and you're jumping back in feints. So those are striking cons. As for how the striking plays out, the striking comparison, I said Izzy will use his feints to set up the low or body kicks. He's going to definitely be heavy on the body kicks while Pyfer is trying to hand fight and find that rear hand. I said Pyfer will pressure throwing the rear hand, of course, so he's going to probably be the one walking forward most of the time, especially the first 3 rounds, because I said the first 3 rounds is the most dangerous for Izzy. Dude, Izzy kind of has to be perfect, you know, with his distance management, because if he's not, he's going to eventually get caught. This is a tough fight for Izzy, man. It's tough. You know, it is tough. Because I know Pyfer's going to come with the pressure in the rear hand. Izzy's going to have to melt him. I will say, Jack Hermanson took away the front leg of Joe Pyfer. He took that front leg away. Pyfer was limping on it, and Pyfer got a little bit more desperate. You know, that's Pyfer low kick. That's a Jack Hermanson low kick. You know, imagine an Izzy low kick. Like if the Joker is taking away your front leg and then starting to tee off on you, trust me when I say Izzy could take away your front leg even worse, and then go to your body, then start throwing head kicks and question mark kicks, and then you don't know where the kicks are coming from. You know, but that's what Izzy should do. He should use his feint, set up the low kicks and body kicks, and even some head kicks off that. You know, even some push kicks and oblique kicks. That's the best case scenario for Izzy. For Pyfer, he has to just try to hand fight him and then pressure him and just put some kind of boxing in his face to overwhelm him. And if he gets Izzy against the fence and he has Izzy a bit panicked, and Izzy can't do this, dude. I don't think Izzy could do this. Like, he can't do much of this. He'll do this and he'll get melted by a straight. So that whole peekaboo thing he tried to do against Strickland and he succeeded against Pereira, that only works against if people are being a little bit dumb when they're teeing off on you. You know, like against Strickland, it made no sense because nothing happened. There's nothing for Strickland to tee off on him for, you know. Pereira hurt his leg, so Pereira thought it was like a kill shot. It was intelligent by Izzy, but when I saw him do that like against Strickland, he seemed to get flustered and tend to like just shell up like that just so you could try to have an aha moment. That's not how shit works. So if he's ever getting flustered by the pressure of Pyfer and he does one of these, it's not going to do him any good. So far, Izzy's track record, the 2 boxers he went against are Mavov and Strickland. It has not been looking good for him, and now he's going against another more dangerous boxer. So this is going to be a tough one for Izzy. As for the grappling, because grappling's still a portion of this fight we should consider, I said for Izzy, the pros are solid takedown defense, especially against the clinch. Like, Izzy's not easy to take down. People like always claim that Izzy's going to just get mauled and took it down and they're going to do whatever they want with Izzy. That's not how it works unless you just don't watch Izzy fights. That just doesn't happen. You know, I think he has sleeper scrambling as well. Like, I saw Victoria get him in a rear naked choke position, as well as DDP in like the first or second round. You know, Izzy's just good at scrambling and like getting out of uncomfortable positions in that. I feel like his scrambling's a little bit sleeper. You know, it's just hard to get to Izzy's hips. And then usually when you get to his hips, Izzy does a good job getting to the clinch. And then at the clinch, I just don't see a lot of people take Izzy down. And Mavo tried, DDP tried. They're both strong guys, you know, both have somewhat of wrestling, but they just can't succeed. Yeah, Whitaker tried a couple times, you know, Victoria tried. Sure, sometimes people get Izzy down, but he's not easy to hold down. There's never really been a round Izzy got held down the entirety of the time. It just never happened, you know. So I will say that it's not easy to just go in there and grapple Izzy. As much as people try to paint that as an agenda, it's not true. As for the cons, though, I did say he has been submitted through crazy pace. He obviously has one submission loss, of course. It was DDP. But I want people to know it wasn't really because of grappling. It was because the crazy pace, what I emphasized there. Pyfer really doesn't put a crazy pace on you. Like I said, tentative at times, that's not a crazy pace. He might be a little bit annoying with the pressure, but he's not going to put an absurd amount of pace on him and make him work. DDP made Izzy work so much, dude. And DDP did really good that round, chat. Looking back at it, like, there's a world DDP was actually up before the finish, you know, because the first round was really close. I think Izzy a little bit slightly edged that, but DDP was a lot. DDP's way better on the feet than Pyfer as well. DDP had good low kicks and, like, you know, things like that, but yeah, I feel like to finish Izzy with a submission, it can't just because you took Izzy down, you moved through this position and like, shut up, get out of here. Not happening, brother. Like, so stop acting like that's going to happen. As for the grappling pros for Joe Pyfer, I said he mixes in wrestling when needed. He's not great at wrestling though, you know, but he has submission victories over Abus and Razak Al Hassan, who's also an African fighter. But yeah, honestly, he's not. I think people think he's a grappler because I feel like everyone just turns into, oh, they're going to take down Izzy. I remember I was debating MMA Guru on what's it called, Imava versus Izzy, and he was like, oh, Izzy, Imava's gonna take him down, he's Dagestani. I'm like, shut up. I hate casuals like that. Same with like DDP. They're like, oh, DDP's gonna take him down and control him for the whole round. Like, no, it's not gonna happen. They're saying the same thing about now Pyfer. Dude, his cons are he's 33% takedown accuracy. He doesn't know how to take anyone down. Like, he just doesn't score takedowns a lot. I think he went like 0 for 4 on a boost, and like, he just doesn't score on people. He just tries it, but he doesn't score. Like, I don't know why people try to paint the agenda that he's a grappler. I'm sure he's going to try to grapple against Izzy. It's just not going to go to his favor. So I just want people to know his takedowns aren't what you think it is, but you might get gaslighted. Like, some people thought Inca Live was a wrestler before Pereira. Now they think Pyfer's a wrestler before Izzy. You guys just got to do your research. I don't know why people think that. But anyways, yeah, I've watched some of his wrestling too. Like, he's strong. That's about it. As for the grappling comparison, Pyfer will mix in the wrestling, like I said, but Adesanya likely defends all, if not most, of the takedowns. And I said Adesanya will pressure off the defense of the takedowns. So I've noticed this about Adesanya in the DDP fight, the Brunson fight, every fight. Izzy's smart. You can see the fight IQ and the championship experience of Izzy. When he stuffs takedowns or anything, he's immediately on the offensive. He did it against DDP sometimes. I remember DDP like got face planted, his face pushed into the fucking octagon, sprawled, nuts on the head, bro. He fucking gets up and like he looks tired as hell, and then Izzy's like, oh, lean back to the pressure, and DDP just does that stupid thing where he just throws. But most of the time it like gets to people. I remember like the first takedown he stuffed from DDP, he was back on the pressure. Same with the Mavov. Mavov tried to take him down against the fence. Izzy reversed him, and Izzy tried to throw him, and then he off that Izzy started pressuring. So Izzy does pressure off the defensive grappling, and I feel like that does a lot, and it kind of breaks that the person's mentally, like they're like, oh shit, he's still coming, pause, but he's still coming after me. After I try to take him down, this could be problematic. So I do think that's something to note, that Izzy will always pressure off the defense. Piper's probably going to try to throw a bomb to get him off him, but I don't know how smart that would be. But as for things to note, because I have some things to note, 5 rounds benefits Adesanya because of cardio. I've seen Adesanya go 5 rounds multiple times. Pyfer's only 5-round situation was against Hermanson. He ended up losing by points because he got tired in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Adesanya's boxing defense got worse over time. I want people to know that because his boxing defense wasn't always the best. But since his agility slowed down, that also is going to negatively affect his defensive boxing. Then third, I said Pyfer is Izzy's most dangerous opponent. Izzy's never stood in front of someone like Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer is arguably stylistically the hardest fight for Izzy, in my opinion. Honestly, like before the DDP fight, I thought Izzy was going to school him because reasons. Before the Imava fight, I knew Imava had puncher's chance in the first 2 rounds. I did note that. But outside of that, I was like, Imava was going to fatigue. Izzy did great against Imava, by the way. Schooled him the first round, But I can't lie when I say this is Izzy's most dangerous opponent, honestly, and I think this is Izzy's hardest opponent. Like the Izzy that fought Paulo Costa will obviously kill him, but this is not the Izzy that fought Paulo Costa. This is a different Izzy, So times are a bit different. But yeah, this is a difficult fight, man. This is a difficult fight for Izzy and for Pyfer. As for my prediction, here's my prediction. Pyfer by KO. Yeah, I said it. I think Pyfer is going to knock out Israel Adesanya. We're going for the reverse Kenny curse, all right? We're going for it. We have to go for it. All that being said, brother, I still think I would have my money on Alex just because the equalizer, bro. He's done it 3 times. Last time I picked against a Nigerian was UFC 287. I picked Pereira to beat Adesanya. And we're going to do this again. We're going to pick Buckley to beat Usman so the Kenny Nigerian curse will come true. Whenever I pick against a Nigerian, they win. Just like any other Kenny curse, I'm not going to be betting on this fight. We're going Buckley. I will not be betting on either guy because I just want to watch this fight just in heart and peace. I will not. I have some stipulations for this. And am I just picking it? Am I just going Pyfer by KO for the Kenny curse? Sure. I believe there's something in the water with that. Also, I think Pyfer can be Izzy. I really do. Like, if you want me to be genuinely honest, I think it's a possibility. So I am officially actually going Pyfer for this fight. I feel like Pyfer can knock out. His knockout threat is too much. Am I picking off puncher's chance? Yeah, I am. Do I always say never pick off puncher's chance? Yeah, I do. But am I doing it? Sure, we're going to do it. I see Adesanya getting caught while leaning. I think his defensive habit is a little bit too significant. Of course, there's a world. Now, this is just a hypothetical world, that I do see. Not hypothetically a world, but like hypothetically, I do see Izzy using his distance management very well, using his feints to open up the body kicks, going low, taking away the front leg of a Pyfer, which in turn is going to ruin Pyfer's power, which in turn is going to make Pyfer not be able to throw at full extent into the full of his ability to hurt Izzy, and by then the rounds 2, 3, 4, 5 start coming, and then Pyfer starts to slow, and then by then it's already an Izzy masterclass, that could happen too. But I am going to go Pyfer by KO, and this KO threat is real, more so than a Mavov. I actually think stylistically, Pyfer's a harder fight than Imava. I swear to God, I believe that. Like, that's me being genuine. Like, I genuinely believe this is Izzy's hardest fight, And I am genuinely going Pyfer. Like, if you want, like, yes, you could say I'm just saying this to confuse people. I'm not betting on this fight. I think Pyfer has a more likely chance of winning. I'm just smiling because like I am, but I trust me, guys. You got to realize I have the best main event picks, and I'm picking Pyfer. So I'm putting my pick rate on the line. So. This is real. Like, I do believe it, I genuinely believe Pyfer has a chance of winning, and I do think it's a dangerous fight for Izzy, But then again, I need Izzy to win. If it's me picking against Izzy that makes him win, or me picking against these Nigerians that make them come out on top, I will continue it, and I will do it. I'll risk it. If I end up just getting the Pyfer pick right, that'd just be a little bit awkward. It'd be cool, though, But, yeah, I will just be enjoying this fight and not betting and just watching it. This fight's very scary for me, though. I hope you guys know that. Like, I am nervous for this fight. I can't lie. This whole video I was a bit more like serious and locked in. I actually telling you guys how I feel. Everything I said in this thing, I do believe is accurate. I do believe every single strength because I watched a certain amount of footage today, guys. Like, you guys wouldn't believe how much I watched since morning. Damn near all their fights in the UFC, both guys. So I do have their habits, So everything I said was truthful. But if you actually look at this pros and cons from a pro and con list, the correct thing to pick probably would actually be Pyfer. Well, it depends, though. It depends what you read. Like, Izzy's pros, like Izzy's cons of like not being able to like defend boxing intelligently, going against like a pretty solid boxer with good power. Izzy's habit of never beating the great boxers he's going against, like Strickland and Imavov and now Pyfer. That's a habit you could account for. Also, you can count for Pyfer being tentative at times, though, and Izzy being really good at feints and controlling distance management, But Izzy low-key has to be perfect for those 25 minutes. Pyfer does not need to be perfect for 25 minutes. Pyfer just has to be perfect for an exchange. I'm going Pyfer officially. But let me know what you guys think down below. That's it for me. God bless. 2, 3, 4.